What's up, everybody? Steve D'Angelo here with the Face Off Sports Network. Week 12. They're calling it the BYEMAGEDDON. And we got 6 teams on a bye. We got the Falcons, the Bills, the Bengals, the Saints, the Jets, and the Jaguars. So that means Josh Allen. That means James Cook. That means Khalil Shakir. That means Kirk Cousins, Bijan, Drake London, Darnell Mooney, Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. Derek Carr, MVS going nuts, less to lesser extent, but you get the point. A lot of big names on a bye this week. Next week, we're not going to have any buys. In week 14, we'll do it again with 6 more buys. But this week, I wanted to kind of, talk to you guys about some sleepers, some emergency plays that you guys can turn to. Just looking at my leagues, I'm in some, desperate situations. So these are kind of guys that maybe you could still pull off the wire. Possibly, maybe you have them on your roster already, on your bench. It's possible. Maybe they're already rostered in some leagues, but just wanted to go position by position and give some players that you could utilize this week in a potentially desperate situation for your fantasy teams. But hopefully you guys built depth. You're adding value, week by week to prepare for this. But if not, we got you covered. We'll help you out. First, we're going to go with Anthony Richardson against the Lions. Now, I know everybody, gave up on this guy. And then last week, he goes against the Jets. He game-winning drive, 70 yards, makes a couple dime passes. Alec Pierce, they runs it in the end zone. Absolute great performance. After everybody doubted this guy, they gave up on him. And I got to be honest, like when Richardson came into the league, I was very doubtful on him right away too, but he looked very, very raw to me. But then as I saw him progressing and playing those first couple games, I really thought he really worked hard on his mechanics. And I liked the way the ball was coming out of his arm. Now, still a lot of inaccuracies, still a lot of overthrows, but this kid, he's going to be a good player in this league. In my mind, definitely. He is working so hard. He's very mature. He's got a great attitude. This game last week against the Jets really showed a lot of his character, especially the way they got that win, especially the way, he finished out that drive. So they play the Lions this week. The game has a 49 total. Alex Anzalone is now out for the year. Add that to, Aiden Hutchinson. So the Lions getting some significant injuries on the defense. The Lions have allowed rushing touchdowns to Baker, Mayfield, and Mason Rudolph, of all people, and 30 yards plus rushing to Mayfield, Rudolph, Darnold, Geno, and Kyler. So now they face Anthony Richardson in a high total. The Lions should put up, close to 25, 30 points in this game with this total. So that means Richardson's going to have to throw a lot. He's going to have to run a lot. He's going to get a lot of offensive possessions. So I think his floor is probably 20 points. Maybe 17, 18, but in a bye week like this, where you have no Allen, we have no Burrow, where he's probably a free agent in your league. Now, I'm so pissed off because I have Allen in one league now. I have Drake May as my backup, but I'm in a salary cap league, so you got to stay under the salary cap. I made a couple pickups, and I picked up Richardson. He was actually out there Sunday morning. I was going to try to keep, but then I had to cut him again because I had to get under the salary cap, and now he's going to go to the Burrow owner, who's my brother, who's probably going to pick him up and use him this week. So not happy about that, but if he's out there in your league, grab him if you didn't already and utilize him this week. I like Anthony Richardson the rest of the way in fantasy. He doesn't need to complete a bunch of balls. He doesn't need to have a ton of passing yards to be relevant in fantasy football. He has that rushing upside. He has, the touchdowns, the rushing yards. So I have confidence in Richardson as a quarterback in this league and in this week against the Lions. Again, 20-point floor for me. I'll take that all day in a bye week such as this with 2 huge names like Burrow and Allen on the bye. Another one, to a lesser extent, is going to be Tommy DeVito. Tommy Cutlett's coming back in the New York, New Jersey area. Another New Jersey guy, Don Bosco Prep. Big parochial school in Ramsey, New Jersey, one of the best Catholic high schools in New Jersey. Used to go to some of their games when I lived in Jersey, but Tommy DeVito, Tommy Cutlets against Tampa Bay, who's allowing the most fantasy points to quarterbacks. Go back to, maybe 6 weeks ago, they faced Spencer Rattler. They allowed 18 fantasy points to him. So this defense has not been playing well. I think DeVito, he's not going to give you, a huge game, but 8 touchdowns, 3 picks last year in his starts. Basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 starts last year. He played another couple games. He came out early. And he also ran for a touchdown. So 9 touchdowns total to just 3 turnovers. He had a game where he ran for 70 yards against Green Bay, he ran for 36 against New Orleans last year, ran for 40 against Dallas. And then against the Jets, he ran for just 12 yards, but did get into the end zone. His highest passing total was 246 against Washington. But, DeVito, he's going to give this Giants team a boost. The aura is going to be around him. For sure, at home in the Meadowlands, the fans are going to be fired up. 41.5 total is low, but again, Tampa, they got a good passing offense. We're expecting Mike Evans back this week as well. He's been practicing, so that should help Baker Mayfield, who's I believe is third in total touchdowns passing in the league right now. So they'll put up some points. DeVito's probably going to have to chase him a little bit. He'll get some rushing yards. He'll get some passing yards, maybe 1, maybe 2 touchdowns. So I think his floor is pretty solid. Again, 15, 16 points probably. Maybe he can get over 20 points for you with rushing upside. So there's worse things you can do this week. Like, Jameis Winston has to go against the Steelers. Do you really want to use that? Or do you want to go with Tommy DeVito, who's definitely out there in your league? Great super flex play. I picked him up in the one super flex league that I'm in. Put a bid in him. I got him. So I like it. Again, the Bucs defense has looked lost to me at times this year, letting up 18 points to Spencer Rattler, who's not a very good quarterback. If anything, him and DeVito are kind of on the same level. I think DeVito might even be a little bit better than him. It's very close. But, nonetheless, it's a good play here, I believe, with DeVito against the Bucs, who are allowing the most points to fantasy quarterbacks. All right, now let's move to the running backs. Gets a little rough here, we're looking at one guy here, Amir Abdullah versus Denver. Now, this is not great option, guys, against the Raider. Against Denver. Denver, tough defense, but this could be a blowout. And it could be a lot of catches for Abdullah in a comeback type of game. Not saying it'll be a blowout, but the Broncos should control this game. Bo Nix playing good football, playing smart football, should get out to a lead with their defense. And, maybe we're looking at like a 20-7 game at some point. And, they got to pick up the pace. So Abdullah could finish with 4, 5, 6 catches in this game, just catching some dump offs. It's possible, maybe squeaks into the end zone. They may use Dylan Lobb as well. But again, this is not a great option. But, with all these running backs out, 6 teams on a bye, no Breece Hall this week, no James Cook, no Bijan, no Chase Brown, ETN's out, no Kamara. You're going to need running back help, and it's not a great one. Again, it's freaking Amir Abdullah. And, Zamir White didn't practice today. Alexander Madison didn't practice today. Madison's got an ankle. I think Zamir White's got a quad injury. So neither practice today. So if one of these guys plays, forget about Abdullah. But if both of these guys are out, Abdullah becomes a play just based on how much volume he's going to get. I would say the floor is probably 8 to 10 points, which is not bad. Just throw somebody in there and get some points. I have some teams where I have no running backs to use. I have to use Abdullah. So if you're in that situation, I do not mind it. All right. How about on the flip side of this game, Audric Estime against the Raiders, who's 7th worst to running backs. Now, last week was supposed to be Estime's game, from the previous week where he got all the carries basically. And, Javonte Williams just got 1. And it was back to Javonte this week again. But again, this could be somewhat of a blowout, if not a blowout, a game that the Broncos can control, a game that the Broncos should be able to run the ball a lot. So if they're up in the second half, especially just like last week, Estime came in that blowout game, got a lot of carries. I'd expect the same here again. And he could finish with 40, 50 yards maybe and possibly fall into the end zone. And who's to say that he doesn't just, get some carries early in the game and Peyton's playing that hot hand, and Estime just turns it up and, plays throughout the game. So, it wasn't great last week, but again, you're in a desperate situation. I don't mind using Audric Estime here in a positive game script, with the Broncos facing the Raiders as 6 points favorites in Vegas, which is basically like a neutral stadium anyway. I mean, you get people that just go out there, they go to Vegas and they pay ticket, pay all that money to watch their team play. So there'll probably be a lot of Broncos fans in the building, or in general, just people that are just in Vegas, want to bet on the game. So, it's not like the Raiders really have a great home field advantage anymore since they moved to Vegas. It's kind of like almost like a neutral stadium. But anyway, nonetheless, good game script for Estime. I think he'll get carries in the second half, could fall into the end zone. So another decent option there at running back. Another one, Roschon Johnson against Minnesota. Last week under new offensive coordinator Thomas Brown. This guy actually was the coordinator last year for Tampa after Frank Reich got fired, and he stepped in basically as the O coordinator there with Bryce Young. And now he's, another firing. He's with another rookie quarterback in Caleb Williams. But what happened last week was Roschon Johnson got 2 goal line carries. He scored last week. Swift did not practice today. Also, this is Wednesday, with a groin injury. Wednesday night late, we're recording this, but he did not practice Wednesday. We'll see what happens on Thursday. But Roschon ran 11 routes to Swift's 13 and had 10 carries to Swift's 14. So this became more like almost like a 50-50 backfield under Thomas Brown. And, not a bad option here either. Roschon Johnson should get some work. So the 3 running backs, Amir Abdullah versus Denver. On the flip side, Audric Estime against the Raiders, and then Roschon Johnson versus Minnesota. Another one, if you wanted to use Cam Akers this week, not a bad one either against the Titans. I'm sorry, Cam Akers. I'm thinking he's on the Texans still. Cam Akers, the Vikings, also against the Bears. So the flip side to Roschon Johnson, go to the other side. So 2 flip sides. We got Amir, got Estime, same game, and then we got Roschon and Cam Akers, same game. And he got some carries last week with Aaron Jones, still a little bit banged up, so Cam Akers was getting work. He actually scored a receiving touchdown. So will that continue this week? It's possible it won't happen, but Ty Chandler is barely being used, and Minnesota may want to kind of just get Jones fully healthy, and maybe he's just not all the way there yet. This could be a week where Jones really turns it up, gets the majority again, and Cam Akers basically does nothing. But again, in a bad situation at running back this week, Cam Akers against the Bears, an emergency situation, BYEMAGEDDON, week 12. I don't mind it. All right, let's move to the receivers. Alex Pierce against the Lions. The Colts are running a ton of 11 personnel this year, 82% last week. Richardson is going to have to be throwing a ton this game. We already like him, at the quarterback position. Pierce with Richardson, 25 targets in 6 games for 15 catches, 325 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Not great, but not bad. Remember week 1, he caught those couple bombs against the Texans. And then Lions are allowing the 4th most fantasy points to receivers. So, this one makes sense to me. They play a ton of 11 personnel, which means 3 receivers on the field, 82% of the time last week. 3 receivers on the field running routes. Pierce is a good player, man. Reggie Wayne was talking him up a few weeks ago, saying you guys all doubted this guy. You gave up on him, but he's a hell of a player. Josh Downs is really good. Pittman has been healthier, but you could argue Pierce, Downs, and maybe even Adonai Mitchell are all better than freaking Michael Pittman right now. Adonai Mitchell also looked good. He's just not getting the snaps. It's been, Pittman, Pierce, and Josh Downs. I mean, maybe Adonai Mitchell kind of gets a bump in this game, but I don't think they're going to take away from Pierce. Maybe, it's possible Adonai could take a little bit away from him and Pittman this week. But again, in a catch-up game, 49 total once again. I like Alec Pierce as a deep target in this game. Even if he gives you 3, 4 catches, he could get 60 yards. That's seven. I mean, it's 10 points right there. And if he gets in the end zone, you're getting 16 points. All right, let's move on. Quentin Johnson against the Ravens. Quentin Johnson this year, he seems to just catch a lot of wide open passes. Again, last week, 4 targets. He's not getting a lot of targets, but 2 catches, 48 yards, scores again last week. And the Ravens are allowing the most points to fantasy receivers, and we have a 50.5 total. Now, Quentin Johnson's probably rostered. Alec Pierce is a guy that's, probably on your waiver wire. But Quentin Johnson's probably, rostered at this point. But, I mean, if you have him, don't be afraid to use him. If he's out there, don't be afraid to use him this week against the Ravens. It's a good start. I like Quentin Johnson in the 50.5 total. And again, the Ravens allowing the most points to fantasy receivers, and Justin Herbert's playing great football right now. All right, another one. Nick Westbrook-Akine. This guy, what is he just? I mean, all he does is score touchdowns. 5 touchdowns his last 6 games. He's took a big bump up since Hopkins has left. Willie Levis is back. I call him Willie Fubu's, but Texans allowing the second most touchdowns to fantasy receivers. So 5 touchdowns his last 6 games. Texans allowing the second most touchdowns to fantasy receivers. Why not get another dang touchdown here for Nick Westbrook-Akine? Again, it's not a great option. You basically need him to score. Otherwise, he'll give you like 2 for 30 or 3 for 30. So you're looking at a pretty low floor. But if he gets into the end zone, he gives you 12, 13 points, something like that possibly. Not terrible. So with Nick Westbrook-Akine in an emergency situation. Couple more. Maybe Wan'Dale Robinson against the Bucks. Bucks, again, allowing 6 most to fantasy receivers. Wan'Dale's like, his floor was like 10, 12 early in the year. Now it's been like 6, 8, 7, 8. It's been really falling off. But maybe he gets a little bit of a bump with DeVito. I know he had like a 100-yard game, 100-yard game last year with DeVito. Again, DeVito is not going to throw for a ton of yards. You got Neighbors in the way too. But again, this could be a little bit of a sneaky high-scoring game between the Giants and the Bucks, just a 41.5 total. I may take that over, actually, on NFL picks. Tune into that Thursday night or Friday morning. You can check out the show and then through the weekend. But I record that late Thursday night after the Thursday night game. I recap the Thursday night game, and then I do NFL picks every week. And we've been pretty hot. 3-1 last week. We're on a 3 of the last 4 weeks. We've had winning weeks. The week before we tie. But anyway, we like maybe Wan'Dale Robinson if he's out there against the Bucks. Not a bad one. Adam Thielen against Kansas City. Bryce Young and Alan Thielen had a good connection last week. Now, tough defense, yes, but Adam Thielen could be out there in your wire. This is the first week back. So if you didn't get him or if he's still out there, it's not a terrible option to go to Adam Thielen, who's a starting, still, he's older now. Was he 33, 34? But still a good route runner. He'll be fresh finally off that hamstring injury. Deontay Johnson's now out of the way. So it's Leggett and it's Thielen. And Thielen, maybe he has a bad day, but maybe he gives you 5 for 50. And he gives you basically, the upside that Nick Westbrook-Akine is going to have to do if he scores a touchdown. All right, tight ends. Theo Johnson, second-year tight end versus the Bucks. He's been dominating snaps. Played the most snaps of the year before the bye week in week 10. He's battling a little bit of a back injury, but he should play. And the Bucks have been allowing the most points to tight ends the last 8 weeks. So, DeVito, may rely on the short targets, just little dump offs. Maybe they do some tight end screens, delayed routes to Theo Johnson. And Theo Johnson's numbers haven't been bad. He's gets you like 6 to 10 fantasy points the last few weeks. So he's been slowly, coming up a little bit again, dominating snaps, getting more and more snaps as the years gone on. And the Bucks allowing the most tight ends, most points to fantasy tight ends the last 8 weeks. Another one, Will Dissly against the Chargers in a total of 50 points. Ravens allowing the 11 most points to tight ends last 8 games. And Dissly's averaging 6 targets a game the last 6 weeks. Last week, 80 yards and a TD. And with Will Dissly, remember him back at his days in Seattle, always was kind of a good player. I believe he had multiple knee injuries like kept them out 2 years in a row or 2 out of 3 years. And, you know, he's just had a lot of injuries, but he's doing a good job. And Herbert, again, 50 total, 6 targets a game for Disley the last 6 weeks, 80 yards and a touchdown last week. They're hitting him up that seam. Herbert's playing great, so I like that one as well. He's a big free agent pickup this week. If you grab them, don't be afraid to use them. Luke Schoonmaker versus the Commanders. Doesn't look like Jake Ferguson's going to play. Basically, McCarthy said it's going to be a long shot. 10 targets last week, 6 catches for 56 yards against the Texans on Monday night. And again, Ferguson's hard-pressed to play. So Luke Schoonmaker is not a bad one. Couple more. Davis Allen against the Eagles. He put up a donut last week, but and Parkinson did score, but he's playing way ahead. He's running way more routes than Parkinson at this point. We'll see if Tyler Higbee comes back, sometime this season. But Davis Allison's is the guy running all the routes. So it's not a bad one. And, he's definitely out there in the wire. He probably got cut because he had the 0 targets. And then one more, Jatavian Sanders versus Kansas City. He's been coming up a little bit of late, scored in his last game. The week before that, had a nice game yardage-wise as well. Bryce Young's been targeting him. Again, Chiefs allowing, 27, by like 8th, 9th most points to fantasy tight ends this year. So that's not a bad one either. Jatavian Sanders in what could be like, somewhat of a blowout as well because the Panthers defense is terrible. It's Bryce Young against the Chiefs defense is not going to be too pretty either. So there you have it, guys. Week 12 BYEMAGEDDON, sleepers, emergency starts, Anthony Richardson, Tommy DeVito at quarterback, Amir Abdullah, Audric Estime, Rashawn Johnson, Cam Akers at running back, Alec Pierce, Quentin Johnson, Nick Westbrook-Akine, possibly Wan'Dale Robinson, Adam Thielen, tight end, Theo Johnson, Will Disley, Lou Shoemaker, Davis Allen, and possibly Jatavian Sanders. So just some names to throw out there. All the best this week, guys. Again, make sure you're optimizing your teams as much as possible every week. If you have waste, if you got guys that are, like Marshawn Lloyd, I was picking him up. Now he's out another 4 weeks. Drop him, pick up some of these guys and get those wins, get into those playoff spots, get the number 1 seed. This now is the time where you want to optimize. I mean, you should have been optimizing your teams all year, obviously, cutting that waste, but no more time to wait for those stashes anymore when you got to get into the playoffs, when you want to secure the number 1 seed, maybe secure more prize money because of that, or get the most points in the league and secure more prize money. Because even if you're going to make the playoffs, you want to get that number 1 seed. You want to get the most points if your league's going to give you money for that. So get those guys, get them in your lineup, and get those wins this week as we head into the fantasy playoffs. But we'll try to do this, in week 14 where we have another 6 weeks, 6 teams off once again, and we'll come back and bring another, BYEMAGEDDON video for you. Everybody's calling it I'm calling it BYEMAGEDDON. But yeah, so that's it, guys. Hope you enjoyed. All the best, and tune in, tomorrow for Stardom Situm with the guys, and then Thursday night again I have my NFL picks. Friday another Stardom Situm, and then one last one on Sunday. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, follow me on X at Fantasy Savvy. We'll see you next time.